Hello, Delta 20, this is 0 Alpha. This is Delta 20, sent. 0 Alpha. A local national reported a potential hostile drop-off at grid 324-11229 at time 0330. One confirmed vehicle, possible sedan, one-time individual observed, possibly more, full stop. Roger so far, over. Delta 20, roger, over. 0 Alpha, move to instant location. Exploit any information and pursue in order to intercept. Break time 0746, over. Delta 20, roger time 0746, out.
Alright guys, close in. Hi, my name is Boris Vos and I'm the Senior Trainer for the Lead Ranger Program. The Lead Ranger Program delivers trainer-trainer courses and leadership development to park rangers in Africa. These park rangers need to protect the wildlife there, and in order to do that they need to learn some hard skills and some soft skills. One of these skills is tracking, the ability to follow an individual or group of individuals by the sign that they leave behind. In this video series, we're going to explore how this ancient old technique that has been practiced by humans for thousands of years can be applied to contemporary tactical operations. Now, in our scenario, we received some information from a local national. He reported that he saw some suspicious activity at a certain location. Now, me and my team behind me are tasked to go to that location, try to find out what happened, and then pursue those responsible. Make sure the perimeter is set. This is UF Pro Tactical Tracking. So we now have arrived at the point of incident as reported by the local national. As we were approaching, I saw an area with increased sign, okay, and a lot of disturbance. So we first did a cast around the area to identify any entry or exit points, and we did identify an exit point, and I'll get to that in a second. But the first thing I want to find out is if the report was accurate and actually what was reported was taking place here. The first thing of interest is this vehicle track coming in, the right tire and the left tire. And the thing that stands out is this area here. So the thing I'm looking at is you have several sort of breaks in the sand as if it was pulled forward. And that's indicative of a braking action. And it really came to a conclusion here where you can see that the earth is pushed down. There's disturbance, earth pushed to the sides here. This is the front right tire where they stopped. Front left is on that side, rear right and rear left. So we know now that at some point a vehicle stopped here quite abruptly. And this so far corroborates the story that was told by the local national. He also said that individuals stepped out and went into the woods, so I need to confirm that as well. Now, if this is the front right tire, I want to be looking at an area about a meter behind, and that is where the passenger potentially got out. So I'm going to be concentrating on that area here. And actually I'm now looking at this area. Now, there's a lot of false sign here. There's a lot of other tracks. There have been animals moving through the area, different vehicles, a motorbike. So I have to be 100% sure what I'm looking for. And in between all that false sign, it would be very difficult to find a complete and full nice footprint. As trackers, we're not really looking for footprints. We're looking for sign. We're looking for evidence that someone or somewhat moved through the area. And we're basically looking for the 6 characteristics of sign, which is transfer, color change, flattening, regularity, disturbance, or discardables. Now, if I concentrate on the area that I mentioned before, I can already see that there's a few things here that catch my interest. First of all, we got some small areas of regularity here. So geometrical lines that are not found in nature normally. And I'm looking at those, and especially this one here, which is sort of a nice triangular shape, and it has very fine lines on the top. And that is definitely made by the footwear impression of a person standing here. The very fine lines also give me an indication about the time. It's not very accurate, but I know that if the rain comes or over time, those very fine lines will deteriorate. Okay, so So far it fits in the timeline that was given by the local national. I can also see more of these areas around here. There's more areas of regularity, of these straight lines that you don't find in nature, which means that someone not just walked through here but stood here for a second and moved around. Okay, and that is also again indicative of someone getting out of the car, stepping out and closing the door. Now after that I want to find out where he went. Did he go back into the car or did he actually walk somewhere? So when I start scanning around this area now, one of the things that stands out is a bit further to the back of the vehicle is this leaf here. This leaf has been turned recently because you can see that there's some sand on the bottom here. Okay, and with some of the rain and the moisture, that stuff will wash off. And as you can see, the leaf was like this, but it was overturned. You got all the sand on the light side on the bottom, the color change. So to me, that's another little clue. We go from that area there onto this little clue here. Now as I start looking backwards, there's some more areas that stand out. Some more areas of flattening. Here you got the shape of the heel of the individual walking this way. Then a bit further down, again we have an area of flattening and a very fine straight line here, which is not something you will find in a tire track, but is really indicative for a tread pattern of a shoe. So from my observations now, I can see that a vehicle stopped here fairly abruptly. On the passenger side, an individual came out, stood there for a very short time, and then started making his or her way towards the back of the vehicle. So I want to find out where that individual went. So I'm going to try and see if I can link those clues together. Okay, and then when we come around the back of the vehicle, here's another area that stands out to me. It has those small regular shapes, regularity, that are indicative of a footprint. Geometrical shapes, some disturbance, some color change where the wet earth is being pushed forward into some flattening here. Right, some more disturbance, color change, regularity in here. And that really leads towards that point that I marked as an exit point, where you can very clearly see those little green plants being pushed down, and then a lot of color change and disturbance going down this hill. So from the information we have now, I sort of deduced that where the person got out, he walked around the back of the vehicle, came to this side, and then made his way down here. Now all I need to confirm is if there's other individuals involved, because the local national was not very precise about numbers, and this is obviously something that is of interest to us. The next thing that stands out to me here is almost a repetition from the other side. You see regularity, geometrical shapes, you see the color change. This is definitely a different color than this or this, where the earth has been moved. You see it here as well, there's some disturbance. Those straight lines we didn't see in the other print, which to me is indicative that this is potentially another individual. And it does make sense because he got out of the passenger side of the left side, stepped here, closed the door, then started making his way, some more regularity there, some more flattening, down into that same location. Now I want to confirm that this is an exit point. I've got two individuals, male or female, I don't know, that exited this vehicle after it stopped, and it seems like they're going down there, so I need to investigate that a little bit further. So one individual came around the back of the vehicle, one individual stepped out of the rear passenger left side, came down this way, they came together, and it seems like they were making their way down this embankment. A couple of things here that give me as a tracker a warm fuzzy feeling. I've got this regularity here, definitely indicative of the individuals we're looking for. As we go down here, okay, a lot of disturbance. The other thing you see here is that, you know, there's a clear space around this stick. It means it would move, because normally with rain and over time, the stick really gets embedded into the ground. And then when you touch it, you get that contained shadow around it. There's some scuff marks on the top. There's a broken stick here. And what's also nice is you can see these small little plants that have been pushed down through flattening. Now normally over time with the moisture they will try to sort of come back up again and try to live and catch the sunlight, but they've been pushed down through flattening. And what you see here is those breaks in those leaves, and that really is indicative of the side of a boot that has pushed them down and made that break. I don't see any animal tracks around this area, and a straight edge like this often very indicative of the side of a shoe. So again, a thing that gives me a warm fuzzy feeling as a tracker. I'm still on track. Now as we're going down, some more regularity here. You can see a lot of disturbance as it goes down. And a little bit further down, you can also see almost like a full perfect two prints of boot outlines as they were going down. Then a bit further down even, one of the branches on the tree has been pushed forward, is showing the underside of the leaves, which is color change. And this makes me as a tracker very confident that the two individuals that exited this vehicle here now have left the main track, have gone down into this thicket, into that direction. So what we're going to do now is we're going to record all relevant information around this incident site. We're going to contact HQ, and when everybody's ready, we're going to pursue these guys. Or girls, we don't know that yet. So as we were searching around the incident site, we were very fortunate to find a very good print of one of the people involved. Now, this is really important to us, and even though we are pressing for time and we want to follow up, it pays dividend further down the track if we take the time now to record this information accurately. So one of the things that stands out for me in this print is that it is a very new print, because you can see the regularity on the sides is very sharp. You can see the edges of the thread pattern are very, very sharp and very deep. So this is not a very worn out shoe. It is a very new one. In the middle you can see quite clearly the outline of the Vibram brand that they put underneath that sole. So again, this gives me an indication what type of boot this is. I can also assess roughly what the height of the person is, and I do that by measuring from the tip of the impression to the rear and multiply that by 6. Now I took these measurements, it's 31 centimeters, multiplied by 6 is 186 centimeters. Now this is not going to be very accurate, and it is assuming that the person is wearing a well-fitting boot, but it can give me an indication about the height of the person that we're following. I'm also looking for especially the areas around the heel, because those ones are really important, because that is mostly the best impression you're going to get when someone is walking. So those details are important as well. Now the other thing that I found in this track, and that is of importance, is that although it is a very new boot, a very fresh tread pattern, there is some damage to it, and one of the shapes inside that thread pattern is damaged, and you can see that it's cut off, and that really distinguishes this specific print from any other print. So even if the rest of the population here is wearing the same boot, I'll be able to tell that this one is actually the one we're following. Okay, we collected all the relevant information. I'm going to contact HQ now to tell them what's going on, and then we're ready to move out.
Hello, Zero Alpha. This is Delta 20, over. This is Zero Alpha, send. Delta 20, short seat rep at grid 34256254. 2 individuals confirmed, moving in a southwestern direction. Age of sign 4 to 8 hours. Tracks 1 times 6-star Vibram, 1 times military type boot. On track. Break time 0923, over. Zero Alpha, roger your time, 0923, out.
Hello Delta 20, this is Zero. In workshop number 001. At time 1023, over.
Delta 20, send.
0. Database check on footwear pattern, negative. No positive identification. Roger so far, over.
Delta 20, roger, over.
0. Target vehicle has been intercepted by call sign Foxtrot 21 at time 0755, full stop. 1 times female detained, full stop. Preliminary questioning suggests a link to a local sleeper cell, full stop. Proceed with caution. Break time 1029, over.
Delta 20, roger your time 1029. On track, out. So moving through this dense vegetation as we're doing right now poses a dilemma for the tracker team. We're moving through dense vegetation, we're a small team, we're on an incline, which means that really from a command and controls perspective, a single file formation is the only viable formation for us. For me as the lead tracker, that poses a problem, because in order to follow the tracks I need to look down. But in order to secure the front, which is also my responsibility, I have to look up. These are not 2 jobs I can do at the same time. And in order to deal with that, there is something that we call the 5-step track pursuit drill, and I'm going to take you through that now. So this is the furthest sign that I could see from back there. And this is what we call the last definite sign. It's the last sign that I'm sure is made by my quarry. I know it's true because I can see that the leaf litter is disturbed. The same irregularity that I found up there is in here. There's a broken branch that the person stepped on. So this is my last definite sign. Now from here on, I want to do the 5-step track pursuit drill. I don't want to lose the track, and I only want to move as far as the next sign that I can see, the furthest sign that I can see. So let me take you through it. My cover man is to my right. My rifle is down because I'm now looking down. I know that the front is covered because out of the corner of my eye I can see his rifle up. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is a mental process, this is like the tracker's mantra, and I'll use my hands now to indicate where my eyes are looking. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assess the general direction. This is step 1. I assess the general direction of my quarry, and I think they went that way. The second step is I'm going to look at other openings through the vegetation where someone could have gone through. And I'm going to check if I see any signs, because maybe one of these guys or girls moved in a different direction. So I want to make sure that they're all still going in the right direction. And I eliminate those openings now. Okay, I'm confident they went that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the furthest sign that I can see, which is about 15 meters ahead of me. And I'm going to try if I can link it back to where I am through the sign that I can see. And I can see it through the color change in the disturbed leaves. Then step 4, I'm going to check left and right for deception, if anyone moved at an extreme angle away. At that point I'm now confident where I'm going. I remember where the furthest sign is. My rifle comes up. My coverman's rifle comes down and I start moving forward as a lead scout.
Hello, Zero. This is Delta 20. Over.
0, send.
At Delta 20, my location is grid 33616102. Full stop. At 2 individuals, southwestern direction. Age of sign 4 to 8 hours. On track. Break time 1113. Over.
This is 0. Roger, your time 1113 out.
So now I arrived at my last definite sign, and I'm going through this 5-step track pursuit drill, and I'm trying to assess the general direction, but I cannot find any more sign. This tells me that I've lost a sign. Now this in itself is not a problem. Trackers lose the sign all the time. It's how you deal with it that is going to determine whether you're successful or not. The way to deal with this is through the 4-step track casting drill. And those are 4 steps that will help you to re-establish the sign when you lose it. And we're going to show you 2 of those. So I've indicated now that I've lost the track. So the first step that I'm going to do is called the initial probe. From where I am at the last definite sign, I'm going to look at openings where our quarry could have gone through. And I'm going to probe those from this position, which means I'm going to move out 3 to 5 meters in a straight line and check for any sign. I'll keep doing that for about 3 times, and hopefully I re-establish the sign. If I do find the sign, I'm going to indicate on track to my team, and we're ready to move. In case the initial probe doesn't yield any result, then I'm going to go into the initial cast. During the initial cast, I'm going to move back along the line of approach for about 10 to 15 meters and make a large circle around my last definite sign, looking for any exit points of my quarry. If I find some, I'm going to mark it. I'm going to complete the circle to ensure that they didn't come back in again and went out again. And then I'm going to take my team and we're going to be back on track. The initial probe didn't yield any result, but on the initial cast we were able to re-establish the sign of our quarry. Now we lost a little bit of time here, so we're back on track. It's time to press on now.
Hello, Zero. This is Delta 20. Over.
0, send.
At Delta 20, my location is grid 31346313. Full stop. A quarry moving in a western direction. Normal speed. Full stop. No further change. Pressing on. Break time 1205. Over.
This is 0. Roger, your time 1205 out.
Flash, 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 0, Delta 20, over.
0, send.
At Delta 20, at grid 29116099. At tracks leading into cave, making entry now, wait out. Zero, this is Delta 20, over.
0, send.
At Delta 20, cave secure. Commencing site exploitation, over.
0, roger, out.
So we followed the track line of our quarry into this cave. As we went in and we ensured that the cave was clear, one of the things that stood out was a campfire, or an old campfire. We don't know yet whether that is related to our quarry, but it's something that we definitely need to investigate. If this is a place where they had a camp, then I'm sure that we can find a lot of information and a lot of good intelligence about our quarry. So one of the things I'll be checking first is the fire. I want to check whether it's still warm to give me an indication how long ago it was made. I'm going to have a good look at it and also see if there's anything inside the fire that our quarry maybe tried to dispose of. A fire is a good place to burn stuff that you don't want to take with you. And then from the campfire, I'm going to go out and start exploring the area and see if I can find any more information that gives me a good idea about who we're following and potentially what they're up to. Now, the first thing that we found was the campfire. By touch, we could feel that there was still some residual heat, which tells me that potentially this campfire was made last night. Now, a campfire can also be a great source of information because most of the time people sit around it. A campfire can be used to get rid of certain items that you want to burn and don't want to carry with you. So I had a little rummage around the fire, and one of the things that I found was a SIM card that was thrown in there. It was partially burnt, but the metal was still visible. Now, this tells me a few things. The most important one is that they don't want to continue on whatever they're doing with this specific SIM card. So an intelligent assumption would be that they use this SIM card for communication, and now prior to what they're going to do next, they want to get rid of it and not take it with them. The other thing I found around the campfire was some rice grains. This is another thing that is of interest to me because it tells me that my quarry is using dry rations. Dry rations means they need a source of water to cook their food. So if I try to get into the mind of the quarry and I try to think where they're going, one of the next stops could potentially be a water stop. Another thing that I found around that campfire were some pieces of stripped electric wire. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. I'm sure they were not here to fix the television, but unless we find some more information, that will be just a guess. So another area of interest that we found is this big area of flattening here. It's about 2 meters long, 60 centimeters across, and it's almost like it's been brushed. All the bigger rocks that you see around have been moved to the sides. It's about as smooth and as soft as you can get it on these rocks. The other thing that stands out is these little rocks here. You can see that they've been moved and been pushed, so some sort of pressure has been exerted on it. Now, with this shape that you see here, it could potentially be a bedding area, but I'm looking for a bit more evidence of that. Now, when I manipulate my light like this and I hold it at a low angle, I can see a lot more shadow on the ground, and that really helps me to see some of that finer detail in here. And one of the things that you see that really stands out here is this almost like straight line here, and that is conducive to, for instance, the side of one of those mattresses that you can lie on. So potentially it's an assumption at this point, but it could potentially be that this area of flattening where, some pressure was exerted and there's this straight line, this could have been one of their bedding areas. And by using this light, as I said, you can bring out a lot of detail. Now, if I come down here, for instance, if I shine on the ground at the same level with my eye, I'm not going to see a lot of detail. But as I bring the light down at an extremer angle, then suddenly all this regularity here starts to stand out through that shadow effect that I create. And what I see here is actually a very good footprint that is the same footprint of the quarry that we've been following earlier. So again, to me as a tracker, that's a warm and fuzzy feeling that the people that were in this cave were actually the same individuals that we've been following from the first incident. Okay, when we were checking the entrance of the cave, one of the things that stood out was this cigarette butt. This is what we call a discardable in tracking, something that has been intentionally or unintentionally discarded by our quarry. So while I was focusing on this, I also had a good look around, and one of the things that also stood out to me is that there's a lot of transfer of sand on the rocks around here. So it almost seemed like someone was in this position for a bit. As I was looking a bit further on top here, I found a couple of finger marks. Then I was coming down, I was checking this area here, which is a bit looser sand, and one of the things that stood out to me was this area flattening about 10 centimeters long, 2.5 centimeters across, with some small circles in it that indicate screws or something similar. To me, this is obvious. This is the butt of a weapon. This also changes the game for us because we now know that our quarry is armed with at least one firearm. So we have to be extra careful, extra cautious as we proceed with this track. So as expected, if this was a camp area, there's a lot of prints and a lot of shoe impressions around this area as the quarry is moving around, sitting down and potentially relaxing here and cooking their food. That is also a good source of information, and it also helps us to confirm again that the quarry that we started tracking from the incident site is still the same quarry that we have here. So again, it is an assumption, but I would say that our quarry has rested here for a certain amount of time and potentially for the night, considering that they were here to make food and also that they had a fire going. As we were searching the cave, one of the guys in the team found an area that was of interest, and I had a quick look at it, and it does worry me a little bit. Now if you look at it, what he found was almost like a perfect square made into the ground, probably with a twig. And it's a perfect square, it's 100% man-made. Some of the other things that I saw as I looked a bit closer was that there's a couple of rocks around that have been moved. There's quite a few sort of small sticks that are clean, that look completely different than the sticks you find in here. And especially this specific rock here that you see down here, it's set up straight on its side, definitely also man-made. Now the other thing that you can see on that side is something, it's almost like those two sticks are organized in a way as it is pointing in a direction. Now, if this was me, that is a model. Because one of the things I see the boundary, I see a couple of twigs that look like a north arrow, I see the stones, I can also see it's been wiped out. That's exactly what I would do after a briefing. And as I said, this is a thing that worries me, because it tells me that in combination with the information we found here, the burned SIM card, this model, the guys are getting ready for something. They are going from preparation phase to execution phase. This means now that we have to hurry up. We don't know exactly where they're going yet, but it seems like they're on their way to an objective.
0, this is Delta 20, over.
0, send.
Moving out.
Delta 20, site exploitation complete, full stop. Confirmed LUP, 2 individuals, 1 times firearm confirmed, full stop. It is my assessment that the quarry has finalized pre-task preparation. Voices far, over.
0, roger, over.
Delta 20, quarry moving in a northwestern direction. Age of sign 1 to 2 hours. On track. Break time 1505, over.
0, roger your time, 1505, wait. Delta 20, rules of engagement 112 now apply to your call sign, confirm, over.
Delta 20, I confirm. ROE 112 now applies to my call sign, over.
0, roger, good hunting, out.
Hello 0, this is Delta 20, over.
0, send.
Delta 20 at grid 27536122. Moving into exposed terrain. Do you have any ISR call signs available for tasking, over?
0, stand by.
Delta 20, this is Tusker 01, over.
Delta 20, send.
Tusker 01, currently 4K south of your location at block 9 to 10,000. Playtime 50 minutes. Ready for tasking, over.
Delta 20, roger. Wait, out.
Now we follow this track to this wood line, and I can see the track running off into the open field. And you can see a very nice clear line through the grass going in the direction of what seems to be a town a bit further down. Now, with the information that we found earlier, there's no guarantee that these guys are going to the town, but at this point I'm not assuming anything. Now, going into the open terrain poses us with a problem, because we are with a small team, there's only 4 of us, and we will have to walk the track that these guys have laid. So it also gives us an opportunity. Because we are going into the open country, I can now change the formation into something that is called the Y formation, which means I will have 2 trackers in front of me at a 45-degree angle, about 10 to 15 meters out, and the 4th guy behind me pulling security. Because I have frontal security at this point, I no longer have the dilemma of covering the front and also looking at the sign. Now I can start looking at the sign, which means that we can start speeding up.
Tusker 01, Delta 20, request visual clearance of route from my location, bearing 340 degrees, 4 kilometers, over.
Tusker 01, visual clearance of route from your location, bearing 340 degrees, 4K, stand by. Tusker 01, no visual contact en route, over.
Delta 20, roger. Request ISR overwatch for my call sign for the next 30 minutes, over.
Tusker 01, provide ISR overwatch for your call sign for the next 30 minutes, Wilco, over.
Delta 20, roger, out.
Okay, so we've been following this track now for a short while. And as we came out of the leaf litter in the forest, the sign has now changed because we're now tracking in grass. Grass is a really good medium for tracking, especially with the sun at a lower angle. Because what happens is that the leaves will start folding down in the direction that the quarry is moving. And by doing so, it almost creates like a mirror surface that reflects the sun directly to the eye. So you get like a light track in the grass that you're trying to follow. And you know this is true because if you watch television and you watch football, you'll see where the lawn mowers have mowed, and the light ones, the light parts that you see is always away from you, the dark ones are always towards you. So grass is really, really good. Also, when I look at the track, a couple of things stand out to me. I can already see a very nice sort of outline of the boot that was put down. You can see the pressure where it was pressed down. Some leaves are being cut off. You can actually see on the leaf the regularity of the stems being pushed into it. You can also see that some of the moisture that was here, and let me just grab it out, it's no longer the nice drops. It's all sort of wiped out by the foot coming through, but it is still wet, so it tells you something about the time. The other thing that I can see is that there's still some transfer on the leaves. So the mud that was picked up by the quarry back in the forest, it's still underneath his or her shoe, pressing down and leaving some residue on the leaves. So again, this gives me a lot of confidence that I'm still on the right track. Also, what you can see is there's still a little bit of dew left on this grass as we're going forward. Now, that dew is then washed off or pushed off by the person stepping on it. So again, a good confirmation. The most important thing about this is that the mud that was transferred onto the grass, but also the dew that was washed out is still wet. And with this temperature here and the sun is out, that means that the time distance gap between us and the quarry is no more than 50 to 20 minutes. So we're really getting close. We spent enough time here, we gotta hurry up now.
Delta 20, Tusker 01.
Delta 20 sent.
I have you approaching the village at grid 27196523. No visual contact, over.
Delta 20, roger, out.
So we followed the tracks of our quarry across the open field into this barn here, which is at the edge of a village. And as I was moving into the barn, I saw what seems to be like a stash that was left behind by our quarry. Now what I can see is a couple of backpacks, there's equipment, there's clothing there. And from what we know from earlier, I was convinced that these individuals were going into this direction on some sort of operation. The weird thing is they left their uniforms behind, they left all their equipment behind, which to some sense could make sense when you consider that they are now going into a populated area. But they also left their weapons behind. And I really don't understand what that means at this point. So we got one thing to do, and that's go into the village and find out.
Delta 20, this is 0. Local law enforcement en route to your location. ETA 7 minutes, full stop. Link up, handover cache, and proceed on track, over.
Delta 20, Wilco, out.
Delta 20, this is Tusker 01, over.
Delta 20, sent.
Tusker 01, eyes are soak of sector Delta 3, Echo 3, Delta 4, Echo 4 complete. Normal pattern of life, over.
Delta 20, roger, over.
Tusker 01, I am bingo fuel and returning to base now, over.
Delta 20, roger. Thanks for your support. Out.
So our quarry moved around the barn towards this village here. Now, from the information that we had from the overnight position and from where they were conducting the briefing, it makes me believe that these guys are not local to this area. Now, in a non-permissive environment, tracking in an urban area is very difficult and would be advised against, because you have to be out in the open looking for tracks. But in this case, in this scenario, okay, we can go into this village, and actually them being not from this area gives us a couple of opportunities, because we can talk to the locals, we can see if anyone heard something or saw something that can give us an idea of their direction. We'll pursue that now. So our quarry went from the sand track over there around the barn onto this concrete. Now on the concrete it's very hard to find sign and to follow someone. You might find some transfer where they move some of that mud onto the track, but after a while you will lose that. So you need a different way to deal with this problem. So one of the things you're looking for is so-called track traps. These are areas that are conducive to good sign. It can be sand on the tarmac, it can be small areas of like even chewing gum, where you potentially might find a little part of the tread pattern that we recorded earlier and actually identify the direction that they went. It is not a foolproof way. It is hard work, and you need to eliminate different routes that your quarry could have taken. But if you persist with it and you do it methodically, then you have a chance to at least establish the direction they went and the side of the town that these guys or girls went to. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to start proceeding into the town, onto the tarmac, and see if there's any point where they jumped off, see if there's any place where they stepped into a track trap, so we can confirm that they're still going in the right direction, or we might even talk to some locals to see if they have any observations. So people are creatures of habit, and they will also very often choose the road of the least resistance. People will cut corners, people will try to walk the route that is most natural to them and will allow them to use the least amount of energy. This is what we call the natural lines of drift. Now the natural line of drift into this town is just on the tarmac and staying there. And the quarry won't step into the side, into the softer ground just for my benefit. But in this case, I did find a partial print here that I'm now going to investigate. One of the scenarios could be that because of a passing car, my quarry had to step off the tarmac into the side of the road. And this is why we were checking as we were coming in. So I'm now going to investigate this and see if this belongs to our quarry. So this is the track here. And one of the reasons why we made these accurate recordings at the beginning of the incident is because in the urban area you rarely get a full print. You only get partials in track traps, small track traps. Now I saw this regularity here, which looks really fresh, and if I look at it with a flashlight I can see a lot of detail there. Now when I'm looking at this, one of the things that I see is that the pattern is very similar to the pattern that I have in my drawing. I can see the star shapes, which confirms to me that this is a Vibram sole. And you can also see those lines here at the side of the track here. But the thing I'm really looking for is that one star shape that is damaged. And I can see that very clearly here. To me that confirms that this belongs to the track of our quarry, and it means that this line of drift following this tarmac road is actually the direction that they're taking. So we're coming up on an intersection. The way to deal with an intersection is when you get there to identify exactly what direction your quarry has taken. And the way to do it is to methodically check all those directions for track traps and see if you can identify the specific track and the specific track pattern into one of those directions. Once you've done that, you can commit to that direction and continue on. So in this piece of sand, mud just on the side of the tarmac, there's another track. I'm gonna have a quick check and I can confirm that this is still a track that we need to follow. So in this case we determined that our quarry is now going into this direction. I'll get the team together and we'll continue on this side.
Hello, 0, this is Delta 20, over.
0, send.
Delta 20, moving towards sector Golf 3, currently at building Echo 159, full stop. Slow going, pushing on, over.
0, roger, out.
Now, the quarry made a shortcut here through the side of the road towards that direction. Initially I was thinking they were going to go to the church. But in that case you would make a sharper shortcut. Remember, lines of drift. Easiest, shortest route. It's actually coming along here going straight to a pub. I have no idea what that means. Guys, this is supposed to be a serious exercise.
Nice tracking, Boris, you found us.
Don't be such a party pooper. Grab a beer.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Call everyone you know. We found the evidence. Just don't let them see when you
You cheeky.
Somebody stole a beer truck. It don't matter who it was. Grab a can and drink it.
Delta 20. This is 0. Over.
We're good to go. Yeah, we hit the mother load.
Delta 20. Delta 20. This is 0. Over. Delta 20. If you're doing this again, order me a cold one. ETA 20 minutes. Over.
Delta 20. Yes, ma'am. Consider it done. Out.
Somebody stole a beer truck. It don't matter who it was. Grab a can and drink it up. Let's keep
Hi everyone, we're back in Africa now. I hope you enjoyed this video series of UF Pro about tactical tracking. Through telling this story, we tried to create certain situations where we could showcase some techniques, procedures and applications of this ancient skill. It's been a lot of fun to do, and by now you've seen the ending. You know, and some of you might be a little bit disappointed that it didn't end in a big fireball and a big firefight, but I found this quite fitting because, you know, many good stories end and start with a cold beer. First of all, big shout out to the team at UF Pro. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have showcased this skill. It's a very professional bunch. If you consider we only filmed this in only 3 days, you know, all of it was put together. And it was a really good experience and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Big thank you to all of you out there as well. All of you that have been watching, that have been commenting, some really nice comments on YouTube, some great questions that came back via Instagram. Some of the good questions that I saw was, and the ones that you asked the most was, you know, how can I read up on this? How can I learn this skill? If you want to read up on it, if you think about episode 1, learning how to see sign, recognize sign, there's a great book out there that if you follow it will actually teach you how to track. It's called Tracking a Blueprint for Learning How by Jack Kearney, a former US Border Patrol officer. In the second episode we go into the close country, track pursuit drill and track casting drill. There's a book out there by a gentleman called Bob Cars, who's former SAS, and he wrote the SAS Guide to Tracking. In episode 3, when we're in the cave and we start looking at discardables, you can pick up some books by David Diaz. Episode 4, the open country. The Y formation is a formation we still use to this day here. It also originated in Africa. There's a great book out there, it's called Tactical Tracking Operations by a gentleman called David Scott Donnellan, an absolute legend. When I met David last year, end of last year in Arizona, he hinted that a couple of new books might be coming out, so definitely keep an eye out for that because he is a real deal. What you saw in this episode, tracking through a village, there's not really a lot of information about it out there. Jack Kearney touches on it in his book. I've seen rangers here track through a marketplace on a Wednesday morning with hundreds of people and goats and everything. It is just persistence and being methodical and just trying to push your way through it. You know, I committed to this video series because I really like the opportunity to showcase the tracking, but also to talk a little bit about what rangers do. None of this was made up by me. You know, I was very fortunate to learn from some pretty amazing people along my life. And it's been good for me personally and also in my military career when I was downrange. I also very much appreciate the fact that a lot of these skills and procedures were developed by people who did the hard yards. who paid for it in sweat and blood, and I hope I did it justice. And if there's any mistakes, they're mine and only mine. We're here in Africa, back in Africa actually. You know, and tracking is, for rangers, is only one of the skills that they need, but it is a skill that they practice almost every day. For a ranger, you know, the ground almost like really speaks to them. One track is like a word, a couple of tracks are a sentence, and they can really recreate and understand what is going on in this vast environment. And they use tracking for all kinds of things. They use it to track animals, to see if animals are injured and they need help from a vet. They use it to see if there's any intrusions into the park, if there's any criminal activity. They can use it to investigate and actually track people and confront them. This is no game. Offenders use counter-tracking, anti-tracking. Often they have firearms and they won't hesitate to use it, you know, if they feel they have a chance to get away. But you know, seeing these men and women at work is really amazing, and it's such an important skill for them. And you know, these places like here are worth protecting. The wildlife is worth protecting. The people are worth supporting. And we're very fortunate that, you know, through Lead Ranger, through my amazing team, through our donors, our supporters, we're in a position to actually support these men and women to do this really important work on the ground. In East Africa, we've got a saying, it is Tuko Pamoja. It means we are together, and it really feels like that. So thanks for sticking with us. I hope everyone is well and keeping well, and we might see you around.